My name is Jaylani. I live with my husband, Theodore. Together, we run a set meal restaurant. This restaurant, named Sunflower, is a place that my grandfather had lovingly maintained for years. It has many regulars from the local area and has been loved for a long time. However, my grandfather, who had always been energetic as the owner, was also battling cancer. I can't just sit around in a hospital room. I'll work at Sunflower until the end. Even as his condition worsened, my grandfather never complained. He kept serving delicious food with a smile on his face, chatting with regular customers. Today, surrounded by his family, he breathed his last breath. My grandfather named me, his granddaughter, his successor for the restaurant. Maybe he had realized his time was near. He left a detailed will, including instructions about the inheritance of the shop. Accepting my grandfather's will, I decided to become the owner of Sunflower. Thankfully, even after my grandfather passed away, the customers didn't stop coming. The employees who had been working for us continued to serve faithfully. Having watched my grandfather's cooking all my life, I was confident that I could continue to serve dishes that tasted just like before. Perhaps it was because I was cooking with all my heart to keep the restaurant going, but the regular customers who were used to my grandfather's cooking gave positive feedback. This taste! It's just like your granddad's. It feels like he's still here even though he's gone. The regulars were delighted that they could continue to enjoy my grandfather's flavors. Sunflower has been thriving just like when my grandfather was around, and I'm more motivated than ever. However, since my grandfather passed away, my husband has started to show dissatisfaction. Normally, a man would be the owner of a restaurant. I don't get why you inherited it. I'm his granddaughter. That's why. The restaurant is in my name, but we're running it together, so it doesn't really matter, does it? Well, I guess. My husband seemed to have wanted to be the owner and sometimes vented his frustrations, but I'm the one who mainly cooks. Since my grandfather's time, my husband has mainly been handling the cash register, deliveries, and shopping. An owner who can't cook doesn't quite fit the bill. I could have given in a little and not been so stubborn, but my grandfather had nominated me. Once nominated, I didn't want to disregard my grandfather's wishes. Jaylani, can I have another one of these? Sure, got it. The restaurant is still bustling, and I'm busy every day. Then, one day, someone paid a visit. Hey, big bro! Long time no see! It was my husband's younger brother. This brother-in-law of mine was quite a troublesome character. Despite his age, he didn't hold a steady job and was always flitting about, playing around. To be honest, I found him difficult to handle. Last year, he moved far away, saying he was going to find work, but it seems he quit that job and came back. Oh, welcome back! Despite this, my husband cherished his younger brother. My husband seemed glad that his brother had returned to our hometown. I heard the old man passed away. You took over the shop, right, bro? No, not me. No way! Your wife? Seriously? A woman running a shop? That's hilarious! Unaware of the annoyed looks from the customers, my brother-in-law roared with laughter. I felt silly engaging with my brother-in-law and decided to ignore him. Since we're family, it's free, right? Yeah, sure. My brother-in-law ate a large meal, drank beer, and left without paying. That's how unreasonable he is. Our relatives come here too, but they always pay. It's unfair to make only your brother free, so please charge him next time. It's fine. He doesn't have money. It's okay to give him a break. My husband seemed to be siding with his brother to the end. After that, my brother-in-law regularly visited the restaurant and ate and drank without paying. Each time, I warned my husband, but he would not listen. Perhaps because I was being persistent, my husband became grumpy and talked less. As our relationship worsened, my brother-in-law started coming to the restaurant more frequently. And each time he would whisper with my husband in the back of the kitchen. I'm sure they were bad-mouthing me. I tried not to mind their behavior and kept cooking. While glancing at me working hard, my brother-in-law had this conversation with my husband. Can't we somehow make this restaurant yours, bro? The name is in my wife's name, so... The location is good. There are many customers. Let's make it your restaurant and monopolize the profit. It must be hard being under your wife's thumb like this. Well, yeah, but... My brother-in-law had set his sights on Sunflower and was scheming to make it their own. Taking advantage of our marital strife, he was trying to get my frustrated husband on board. But how are we going to make it our restaurant? I have a good idea. The two began to quietly plot. My husband agreed with his brother's opinion, and they decided to put their plan into action. The next day was the restaurant's day off. My husband left early, leaving me alone. Even though it was my day off, I remembered that the kitchen was dirty. I decided to visit the restaurant and spend the whole day cleaning. When I tried to open the door of the shop, it was unlocked. Thinking I'd forgotten to lock it yesterday, I rushed in, and there were my husband and brother-in-law. "Oh, you're here!" I was surprised because the door was unlocked. "It's our day off today. What are you doing?" As I called out, the two of them smirked as if they were up to something. "Actually, we have something to talk to you about. Since you took over this restaurant, you've been getting too big for your boots and it's bothering us." "I'm not getting big-headed." "No, you are. Don't you think so?" "I do. You're happy because the restaurant's thriving and profitable." "What are you trying to say?" The two of them spoke as if they were making fun of me, which frustrated me. As I showed my angry expression, my husband started to spread out some documents on the table. "I'm sick of your attitude. Let's get a divorce." The document was a filled-out divorce application. Surprised by the sudden announcement, I was stunned. "Huh? What? What do you mean?" I was shaken, unable to understand what my husband was thinking. The first thing that crossed my mind was about the continuation of the restaurant. There are a few employees, but running the restaurant alone after the divorce would surely be hard. "This is too sudden. I don't understand what you're saying. It would be hard for me to keep running the restaurant alone if we divorce." About that, we're going to buy this restaurant. We're going to start it anew as our own, so we want you to leave. I couldn't understand what my husband was saying at all. "It's such a waste to continue running a dull diner in such a good location with so many customers. We're going to make this restaurant better." "That's why? Please sign the divorce papers and leave quickly." The two of them were saying such absurd things that I couldn't keep up. "This is a restaurant that my grandfather protected. The profits are already enough. We should continue as we have been for the sake of the customers." "So you're saying you have no intention to grow? In a little while, a restaurant like this will go out of business. To prevent that, I'm saying I'll start a new restaurant." No matter what I said, I couldn't get through to them. Surely my husband must have been brainwashed by his brother. "Well then, we'll buy this restaurant for whatever price you want. We'll be able to earn it back quickly, so any price is fine." I couldn't stand the bullying attitudes of the two of them. "All right. If that's the case, I'll sell it for $50,000. Please wait for 2 weeks while I prepare the divorce papers and the contract. And during those 2 weeks, neither of you should come to the shop." Once I said I was selling the shop, the two of them were in high spirits. There was a reason I was giving up the shop so easily. They were selfishly talking without knowing about it. In the meantime, I managed to run the shop alone. "Huh? Where's your husband?" "Well, we're actually getting a divorce." "What? So suddenly? So, will you be running Sunflower alone then?" "No, my husband is buying the shop. I'll be leaving in 2 weeks." The customers were surprised and looked genuinely disappointed. "But there's some good news, too." I quickly distributed flyers that I had made to the customers. When they saw it, their expressions immediately relaxed. And 2 weeks later, I presented the contract to sell the shop and the divorce papers. "There are no complaints with this, right?" My husband promptly signed the contract. $50,000. I'll transfer it to your account right now. So this is my shop from now on. My husband and brother-in-law were ecstatic. With them out of the corner of my eye, I packed up my belongings and left the shop. On my way to file the divorce papers, I was excited to see what the two of them were going to do next. My ex-husband and brother-in-law immediately started running the shop. "We've explained the situation to the employees, and even without Jaylani, the shop should run fine." "All right, let's make some money." With that, the two of them began to prepare for the day with enthusiasm. At 10 o'clock, when the shop usually opens, a different scene unfolded. "Why aren't the customers coming?" There were no customers who usually came as soon as the shop opened. The employees who had always been diligent about coming to work weren't at the shop either. My ex-husband tried calling the employees, but no one was answering. They had never experienced anything like this before, and the two of them began to panic. Rushing out of the shop, my ex-husband noticed a regular customer walking by. "Hey, you're our customer, right?" "Huh? Oh, yeah." "I've been worried because you haven't come in yet. Come on in." Didn't you say the wife quit the shop? I was coming here for her cooking, so maybe I won't come anymore." "Don't say that. We'll definitely serve something delicious." My ex-husband somewhat forcefully guided the customer into the shop. The customer reluctantly entered the shop and started to look at the menu to place an order. "What's with this menu?" "Since I'm the shop owner now, I've decided to drastically change the menu." The traditional sunflower set meals were nowhere to be found on the menu. The menu was filled with foreign words, and it seemed difficult for the customer to understand, causing a drop in enthusiasm even before ordering. "Then I'll have this steak." "Understood." My ex-husband and brother-in-law enthusiastically started cooking. The customer, who had never seen my ex-husband cook, anxiously awaited the meal. "Hey, is it ready yet?" "Sorry for the wait." Finally, 40 minutes after the order was placed, the meal was ready. When the steak was brought to the table, the customer's eyes widened in surprise. "What is this?" What my ex-husband served could hardly be called a meal. There were only 3 pieces of meat in the center of the plate. The outside was burnt, and the inside was raw. There was no sauce or anything else, just a bowl of bread and soup. "We used high-quality ingredients, so we only used salt and pepper for seasoning. We cooked it to bring out the aroma of the outside and enjoy the rare inside." The customer didn't touch the steak, which looked like a failed dish at first glance. Upon closer inspection, the soup appeared to be instant. "I'm sorry, but I can't eat this." The disgruntled customer stood up, ready to leave the shop. My ex-husband was shocked that not a single bite was taken. "Customer, you still have to pay. That will be $30. $30? You're joking. I can't pay for this garbage-like meal." The furious customer stormed out of the shop. Taken aback by the unexpected turn of events, my ex-husband and his brother were stunned. At the same time, they realized they were in a dire situation. Neither my ex-husband, who had barely ever cooked, nor my freeloader brother-in-law could possibly run a restaurant. They should have realized this if they thought about it, but they were too focused on making money. From that point on, not a single customer visited the Sunflower under their management. Meanwhile, I had started a new shop in a different location. It's Sunflower 2. The employees who had worked at the original Sunflower are also with me. This shop was also inherited from my grandfather. My grandfather had been concerned about the aging Sunflower and its durability, so he had built a new shop in a different location. He wanted to announce the new shop once it was finished, but he passed away before the shop was completed. This shop was entrusted to me. I had not disclosed the existence of this new shop to my ex-husband. During the 2 weeks I handed over Sunflower, I advertised the new shop. Regular customers who wanted to eat my food all followed me. Thanks to that, the shop has been bustling since its opening day. We have enough margin to hire a few part-time workers. Since I have the $50,000 I received from my ex-husband, I can also add to the employees' salaries. Here, I began to offer my original dishes. To broaden our customer base, I came up with menus for younger people and even weaning food that small children could eat. This has attracted a lot of attention, and the number of families visiting has increased. While keeping my grandfather's flavors, I'm growing the shop to fit the times. The daily hustle gives me a sense of fulfillment. Meanwhile, my ex-husband and his brother were at a loss in the old Sunflower. They had borrowed a large amount of money to pay me $50,000, and now they are receiving demand letters. "What are we going to do about this?" "You're the one who suggested this, right? Figure it out!" The brother-in-law, whose predictions had gone awry, was holding his head in his hands. Then he had an idea. "I've got a great plan." Hatching a scheme, the two of them suddenly showed up at my bustling restaurant during the busy lunch hour. "Jaylani, please help us!" Despite the restaurant being packed with customers, the brother-in-law was shouting loudly, "My brother hurt his arm and can't cook anymore. We'll give the old restaurant back. Could you return the money as well?" "You guys took over the old restaurant, remember? You signed the contract. You need to take responsibility and make it work." I brushed off the brother-in-law's plea and was about to return to my work when my ex-husband appeared from behind him, looking pained. "Jaylani, help me." Thinking he was being overly dramatic, I was about to turn back to the kitchen when the restaurant became noisy. "Whoa! What's that?"
"That looks painful. Is he okay?"
When I looked towards my ex-husband, seeing the customer stirring, I was taken aback. His fist was covered in a large bruise. "Are you really injured?"
"That's what I've been saying."
"Then go to the hospital right now." I quickly called a taxi and sent my ex-husband to the hospital. During my lunch break, I went to the hospital to check on him. When I arrived, he was just coming out, apparently finished with his examination. As I tried to ask what had happened, the two of them avoided my gaze and hurriedly ran off. Feeling suspicious about their behavior, I decided to inquire at the hospital reception. "I believe a man named Theodore was seen here earlier. Has his examination finished? I came to pick him up."
"Please wait a moment."
I had them check on the status of his examination using his name. However, the receptionist was looking puzzled. "There's no record of such a consultation. Perhaps he went to a different hospital?" My ex-husband hadn't received an examination. Remembering the sight of the two running away, I felt they were hiding something. I quickly set off to pursue them. A few minutes of driving later, I spotted my ex-husband and brother-in-law walking. I immediately stopped the car, grabbed my ex-husband's arm, and called out to him. "I knew it!" Looking at the fist of the arm I grabbed, the bruise was completely gone. My ex-husband and brother-in-law tried to run, but I mustered all my strength to stop them. Seeing my furious expression, they quickly calmed down. "Why is the bruise gone? You weren't injured after all."
"Well, running a restaurant's hard. The old Sunflower hardly gets any customers, so we can't make money and can't pay back the debt. That's why I pretended I was injured and couldn't continue the restaurant to try to get the money back."
"I'm appalled! You were trying to deceive me with such a childish lie." I let go of the two. "Don't involve me in your affairs from now on. You two figure out what to do with that restaurant." I got back in my car and returned to my restaurant. Through the mirror, I could see the two hanging their heads in shame, which made me feel pathetic. Afterwards, the two quickly put Sunflower up for sale. I think they made that decision to repay their debt, but due to the building's age, they struggled to find a buyer. They received a flood of debt collection letters and were working around the clock. This life suits them, having thrown away something precious due to their greed. As for me, my newly renovated restaurant is thriving even more than before, with sales doubling. One of my regular customers offered to apprentice with me, so now I have a disciple. I often remind him that running a restaurant is not as easy as my ex-husband thought. I want to continue to carry on my grandfather's restaurant for the foreseeable future.
My name is Evelyn, a 28-year-old office worker. I've been dating Andrew for 2 years, and he recently proposed to me. Andrew is 30 years old and works at a regional bank. His dad also works at the same bank and is branch manager. I met Andrew through a friend's introduction. He might seem a bit unreliable at times, but he's a kind person. I like that he's not the type to forcefully lead me. I've always struggled with people who don't listen to others and just pull you along in their direction. Maybe I prefer someone like him because my dad also listens to others and respects their opinions. I lost my mom about 10 years ago and have been living with my dad since then. My mom had always been frail, but her health worsened after I graduated from elementary school, leading to repeated hospital admissions. My mom had a weak heart, and I only remember her as always lying down. My dad while running his company, took care of my mom and also looked after me. From my upper elementary school years, I started helping with cooking and taking care of my mom. I've been doing it since I was little, so I never thought it was too hard. Evelyn, I've always put you through a lot. My dad would always say. I don't mind at all. I would reply, to which my dad always seemed apologetic. Then, when I was in my senior year of high school, my mom passed away, and my dad's grief was immense. It made me realize how deeply he loved her. I thought it would be nice to marry someone who would care about me as much as he did. Andrew, whom I met through a friend, somehow reminded me of my dad, and I quickly fell for him. I knew he worked at a bank, but I didn't know his dad was also a banker, and a branch manager at that. My dad runs a small company, so he has dealings with banks, but probably not with branch managers. I even thought about joining my dad's company when I graduated from college. Can I work at your company, Dad? I asked casually, but he answered seriously. We can't have you here, because being family might lead to favoritism, he said firmly. Indeed, my dad as an employer would have to be careful around me, and the other employees might struggle with how to treat me. So, I didn't end up working at my dad's company. After accepting Andrew's proposal, I was set to meet his parents. I had already told my dad about planning to marry Andrew. Congratulations! I'm sure your mom would be happy, my dad said, almost in tears. After meeting his parents, I'll introduce him to you, Dad. If you love him, I won't say anything, he assured me. On the day I was to meet Andrew's parents, my dad, seeing me nervous, said, Just be yourself. Pretending to be someone you're not gets exposed quickly. Have you ever pretended, Dad? I asked curiously. When I met your mom's parents, I tried using formal language I never use, and they saw right through it, he shared with a laugh. Thanks to my dad's story, my nerves eased a bit, and I left home more relaxed. When we arrived at Andrew's house, his parents greeted us. Thank you for coming all this way. Don't be nervous, we just want to talk, they added, surprisingly casual. It felt like I was a job applicant. Even though I looked to Andrew for help, he just played dumb. In the guest room, I handed the gift I brought to Andrew's mom. It's just a small thing from a famous local bakery. It was a specialty of a famous candy shop in the neighborhood. I've never seen this before. Such a trivial item indeed, she said, throwing the box carelessly. I was more shocked at how she mistreated food than how she treated my gift. As I was reeling from her actions, Andrew's dad asked, Evelyn, was it? Where do you work? It felt more like an interrogation than a conversation. Before I could even greet them, Andrew's dad bombarded me with questions. I work at AppleText Solutions, I replied as cheerfully as I could. Ah, AppleText Solutions. Do we have any business with them at our bank? My company is a large corporation, so we don't really deal with his regional bank. What does your dad do? He runs a small business. My dad's business isn't that small, but I downplayed it. So he's like a self-employed person, Andrew's dad concluded on his own. I wanted to correct him, but I didn't want to come off as disrespectful. Perhaps he thought he couldn't criticize me for working at a large company, but felt free to comment on my dad's smaller business. Was your mom a homemaker? Andrew's mom asked, pouring coffee. She passed away about 10 years ago. I've been living with my dad since then. Andrew's parents seemed taken aback by this. So, it's been just the two of you? Faced with the insistent questioning of Andrew's parents, yes, it's just been my dad and me. I answered clearly. Even though it's a father-daughter household, I was already working, and I was 18 when my mom passed away. I don't have the image of a struggling dad with a young child. It must have been hard without a mom, right? Life gets messy, doesn't it? No, I was already grown up, so it was okay. Unhappy with my response, Andrew's parents grimaced. I regretted being honest. They seemed to look down on father-daughter households. Did you use scholarship to attend university? The conversation shifted unexpectedly. No, my dad paid for my tuition normally. I spoke the truth, but Andrew's dad seemed skeptical. It's though to keep paying back scholarships after marriage. Many people are still doing it. He seemed to assume I had scholarship debt. How much do you have to pay back? He had convinced himself that I borrowed a scholarship. I didn't borrow any scholarship, so I don't have to repay anything. I was surprised that someone like him, who hardly listens, could be a branch manager. But it wasn't just him. Andrew's mom also had strong misconceptions. Struggling in a father-daughter household and having to repay a scholarship, she said pityingly. Planning to pay it all off quickly once you marry Andrew, right? She accused with a mean look. Looking to Andrew for support, he just nodded along with his mom. Left with no one to help, I had to fend for myself. There's no scholarship repayment, so don't worry, I insisted, clearly annoying them. Growing up in a father-daughter household, you can't listen to others, can you? Poor thing. Their prejudice against father-daughter households was frightening. Your dad might be in debt too. Andrew's dad speculated wildly. Rather than an assumption, it's more like a fantasy habit. It's tough for self-employed businesses these days. If he runs away in debt, it's a big problem for the bank. Once you marry Andrew, you might force our bank to lend you money. In their minds, they had concocted an elaborate story. We don't have any dealings now, but I'll remember the name and make sure not to lend. Andrew's dad said with a disturbing resolve. I had already given up on marrying Andrew by this point. More than given up, it was clear I couldn't live with these people. I felt embarrassed for ever thinking Andrew was like my dad. My dad was nothing like this heartless man. A daughter from a father-daughter household, self-employed with debt, is not a suitable match for Andrew. Andrew's mom yelled. I checked Andrew's reaction. He seemed to agree, nodding again. Disgusted, I realized Andrew's dad was boasting. There are many women who approach us for our status. Marrying rich is a shortcut to wealth, he said smugly. Seeing him boast while I was being insulted and Andrew not defending me, I lost all affection for him. The interview-like atmosphere I felt when I first came was accurate. This wasn't a meet-the-parents visit, but an interview to check if I was a suitable match for their son. It was an unfair interview, designed for them to feel superior. I realized I had come to a terrible place. In a way, it was good. Becoming family with these people unknowingly would have been awful. Though it was unpleasant, I was close to marrying into this. Still wanting to belittle me, Andrew's parents weren't done. But I wasn't that naive. It seems I failed your interview, so I'll take my leave. Leaving these words behind, I left Andrew and his parents and walked out of his house. Andrew didn't come after me, marking the end of our relationship. Seeing my strained face upon returning home, my dad asked, Are you okay? What happened? Though I had put on a brave face leaving Andrew's home, seeing my dad made all my tension unravel. I burst into tears and clung to him. Without a word, my dad just waited for me to stop crying. I won't be marrying him, I confessed. Dad wasn't surprised, having guessed from my state that the marriage was off. For the first time in my life, I was completely ridiculed by strangers. Crying so much washed away my sadness, leaving only anger towards Andrew and his parents. They looked down on us, saying it's pitiful to be in a father-daughter household, calling us poor. Dad just nodded silently as I vented. And they even assumed I had to repay scholarship for university and was marrying for that reason. Listening to my unceasing anger, Dad's brow furrowed. I was the only one venting my anger, but once I vented all my frustrations, I felt relieved. As if waiting for this, Dad finally spoke. There was no fate with Andrew, it seems. Indeed, there was no destiny with him. The words of his parents hurt, but I was most angered by Andrew, who didn't stand up for me. By the way, which bank does Andrew work at? I told Dad the name of the bank and where Andrew's dad was a branch manager. Which branch manager is that? Looking at a business card Andrew had given me earlier, I answered Dad. My lovely daughter has been insulted. Maybe it's time for a little payback, Dad said with a meaningful smile. A week later on a holiday, we had an unexpected visit at our home. It was Andrew's dad. Sorry for the other day. What brings you here today? More sarcasm? I said through the intercom. Evelyn, is your dad home? May I speak with your dad, please? Taken aback by his unusually humble attitude, Dad said, Let him in. I have something to say too. With a slightly intimidating look, I led them into our house. Upon entering, Andrew and his dad immediately apologized. We're so sorry about the other day, Andrew's dad said, bowing deeply. Andrew apologized in the same manner. We can't afford to forget the company auditing our bank's accounts, Dad said, causing them to bow even lower. Please, can we keep this incident from the main branch? Confused, I asked Dad, who then explained what had happened. The day after I visited Andrew's house, Dad went to Andrew's dad's branch. The branch manager had exchanged business cards with Dad, but hadn't realized what my dad's company did. Panicked, another bank employee explained to the manager that Dad's company was auditing their bank. You are the branch manager? I came to thank you for yesterday. My daughter visited your house. Your daughter? Yesterday? Andrew's dad was confused, not realizing Dad was my father. I'm sorry for any rudeness my daughter may have caused, Dad said sarcastically. The other bank employees were flustered, not knowing how to handle the situation. The president of the accounting firm that spoke directly with the bank's executives had come to their branch, causing a stir. The branch manager is confused, even though he greets Dad politely, saying he shouldn't be rude. Although they welcomed Dad respectfully, the branch manager was perplexed. It seems my daughter might have been rude, but you were quite disrespectful too. I heard from her. We can end our dealings with your bank if that's what you prefer. What? Dad's command, meant as a joke, sent shockwaves through everyone, including the branch manager. Even Dad was surprised by the strong reaction. Dad hurried back home, and it turned out to be more effective than I had imagined. Andrew's dad hadn't realized until the end that my dad and the president of the accounting firm were the same person. My dad's company isn't well known generally, but seems to be a big player in its industry. Trying to give Andrew's dad a bit of shock, my dad visited him, causing quite a stir at the bank. The other bank employees were panicked and apparently urged Andrew's dad to apologize. Then, Andrew and his dad came together to apologize. "You shouldn't be apologizing to me. You should be apologizing to my daughter first." I was surprised by the firm tone of my dad, which I had never heard before. Andrew and his dad seemed even more shocked, crawling on the floor. "We are sorry for the other day. We were disrespectful and have reflected on it. I didn't say anything wrong, so we're good, right?" Andrew said with a sarcastic smile, looking up at me. "I'm mostly angry with you for not standing up for me." Faced with my glare, Andrew pressed his forehead back to the floor. He probably wanted to reconcile with me. I had many missed calls from him on my mobile phone. I hadn't noticed them because I blocked his number, but after they left, I saw how serious it was. It was a good opportunity for my payback. How does it feel to apologize deeply to the father-daughter household you mocked as poor? Neither Andrew nor his dad could respond. Give me my regards to Isabella, who always had snide remarks. The part about stopping the business was a joke, and I won't tell the main office, but please stay away from my daughter from now on. Dad spoke sternly again, and they could only keep apologizing, prostrated on the floor. By the time they left, Andrew's dad's forehead was red from bowing so much. Dad and I burst into laughter watching this. Mocked by us, Andrew and his dad shared a wry smile with each other. Their apology and my chance to talk back marked the definitive end of my relationship with Andrew. Later, I heard that Andrew's dad was demoted from his position as branch manager after the incident reached the main office. Andrew was transferred to a distant branch, seemingly ending his chances for advancement. I started dating someone new, introduced by a friend. I didn't want to experience the same pain, so I checked with him from the start. "I'm from a father-daughter household. Is it okay?" He looked puzzled but assured me it didn't matter. "Do your parents have any prejudice against father-daughter households?" He looked surprised again, but laughed and denied it. "We've just started dating, but it feels like things might work out well with this new guy."